Middle position is correct almost by definition. It should be kept in mind that while uncritically assuming that the middle position must be correct because it is the middle position is poor reasoning, it does not follow that accepting a middle position is always fallacious. As was just mentioned, many times a moderate position is correct. However, the claim that the moderate or middle position is correct must be supported by legitimate reasoning. Examples of middle ground. Some people claim that God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. Other people claim that God does not exist at all. Now, it seems reasonable to accept a position somewhere in the middle. So, it is likely that God exists, but that he is only very powerful, very knowing, and very good. That seems right to me. Congressman Jones has proposed cutting welfare payments by 50%, while Congresswoman Shender has proposed increasing welfare payments by 10% to keep up with inflation and cost of living increases. I think that the best proposal is the one made by Congressman Trumple. He says that a 30% decrease in welfare payments is a good middle ground, so I think that is what we should support. A month ago, a tree in Bill's yard was damaged in a storm. His neighbor, Joe, asked him to have the tree cut down so it would not fall on Joe's new shed. Bill refused to do this. 2 days ago, another storm blew the tree onto Joe's new shed. Joe demanded that Joe pay the cost of repairs, which was $250. Bill said that he wasn't going to pay a cent. Obviously, the best solution is to reach a compromise between the two extremes, so Bill should pay Joe $125. Fallacy. Misleading vividness. Description of misleading vividness. Misleading vividness is a fallacy in which a very small number of particularly dramatic events are taken to outweigh a significant amount of statistical evidence. This sort of reasoning has the following form. Dramatic or vivid event X occurs, and is not in accord with the majority of the statistical evidence. Therefore events of type 10 are likely to occur. This sort of reasoning is fallacious because the mere fact that an event is particularly vivid or dramatic does not make the event more likely to occur, especially in the face of significant statistical evidence. People often accept this sort of reasoning because particularly vivid or dramatic cases tend to make a very strong impression on the human mind. For example, if a person survives a particularly awful plane crash, he might be inclined to believe that air travel is more dangerous than other forms of travel. After all, explosions and people dying around him will have a more significant impact on his mind than will the rather dull statistics that a person is more likely to be struck by lightning than killed in a plane crash. It should be kept in mind that taking into account the possibility of something dramatic or vivid occurring is not always fallacious. For example, a person might decide to never go skydiving because the effects of an accident can be very, very dramatic. If he knows that, statistically, the chances of the accident are happening are very low but he considers even a small risk to be unacceptable, then he would not be making an error in reasoning. Examples of misleading vividness. Bill and Jane are talking about buying a computer. Jane: I've been thinking about getting a computer. I am really tired of having to wait in the library to write my papers. Bill: what sort of computer do you want to get? Jane: well, it has to be easy to use, have a low price and have decent processing power. I've been thinking about getting a Kiwi Fruit 2200. I read in that consumer magazine that they have been found to be very reliable in 6 independent industry studies. Bill: I wouldn't get the Kiwi Fruit. A friend of mine bought one a month ago to finish his master's thesis. He was halfway through it when smoke started pouring out of the CPU. he didn't get his thesis done on time and he lost his financial aid. Now he's working over at the Gut Boy Burger warehouse. Jane. I guess I won't go with the Kiwi. Joe and Drew are talking about flying. Joe. When I was flying back to school, the pilot came on the intercom and told us that the plane was having engine trouble. I looked out the window and I saw smoke billowing out of the engine nearest me. We had to make an emergency landing and there were fire trucks everywhere. I had to spend the next 6 hours sitting in the airport waiting for a flight. I was lucky I didn't die. I am never flying again. Drew. So how are you going to get home over Christmas break? Joe. I am going to drive. That will be a lot safer than flying. Drew. I don't think so. You are much more likely to get injured or killed driving than flying. Joe. I don't buy that. You should have seen the smoke pouring out of that engine. I am never getting on one of those death traps again. Jane and Sarah are talking about running in a nearby park. Jane. Did you hear about that woman who was attacked in Tuttle Park? Sarah. Yes. It was terrible. Jane. Don't you run there every day? Sarah. Yes. Jane. How can you do that? I'd never be able to run there. Sarah. Well, as callous as this might sound, that attack was out of the ordinary. I've been running there for 3 years and this has been the only attack. Sure, I worry about being attacked, but I am not going to give up my running just because there is some slight chance I'll be attacked. Jane. That is stupid. I'd stay away from that park if I was you. That woman was really beat up badly, so you know it is going to happen again. If you don't stay out of that park, it will probably happen to you. Fallacy. Personal attack. Also known as ad hominem abusive. A personal attack is committed when a person substitutes abusive remarks for evidence when attacking another person's claim or claims. This line of reasoning is fallacious because the attack is directed at the person making the claim and not the claim itself. The truth value of a claim is independent of the person making the claim. After all, no matter how repugnant an individual might be, he or she can still make true claims. Not all ad hominems are fallacious. In some cases, an individual's characteristics can have a bearing on the question of the veracity of her claims. For example, if someone is shown to be a pathological liar, then what he says can be considered to be unreliable. However, such attacks are weak, since even pathological liars might speak the truth on occasion. In general, it is best to focus one's attention on the content of the claim and not on who made the claim. It is the content that determines the truth of the claim and not the characteristics of the person making the claim. Examples of personal attack. In a school debate, Bill claims that the president's economic plan is unrealistic. His opponent, a professor, retorts by saying the freshman has his facts wrong. This theory about a potential cure for cancer has been introduced by a doctor who is a known lesbian feminist. I don't see why we should extend an invitation for her to speak at the World Conference on Cancer. Bill says that we should give tax breaks to companies. But he is untrustworthy, so it must be wrong to do that. That claim cannot be true. Dave believes it, and we know how morally repulsive he is. Bill claims that Jane would be a good treasurer. However, I find Bill's behavior offensive, so I am not going to vote for Jill. Jane says that drug use is morally wrong, but she is just a goody two-shoes Christian, so we don't have to listen to her. Bill, I don't think it is a good idea to cut social programs.